In this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to do an AC recharge on a B6, B7, S4 using this method right here. As always, I'll be posting links as to where I got the stuff, and also, or if there's no links, where I got them. When it comes to how many cans of these you'll need for the AC recharge, so if you look on the B6 S4, I might be the same for the B7 as well. So on the hood part, there's a sticker right here. So right here it tells you what you probably can't see the picture, but I'll take a picture of it and post it on the screen. So it says R134A, and you need about 500 plus or minus 20 grams of the refrigerant. As noted, I need 500 grams with plus or minus 20 grams of the refrigerant. So on the bottle, depending on which bottle you get, right on the bottom, so this one has 340 grams. So one bottle won't be good enough, so I need to have two. But with that being said, I can't use all the bottle because that'll put me over that 500 plus or minus 20 grams. So that's where the scale will come in handy. And there's a whole bunch of different types of R134As out there. Either if you go to an auto parts store, that's where I got this. I actually got this at an auto parts store, or if you go online. So this is just straight up 134A refrigerant. This is no additives, there's no lubrication, there's no sealer, no UV dye, none of that. It's just straight up R134A. So on the manifold, you got the blue, which is your low pressure, and your red, which is your high pressure. So where this is going to be connected is you got a little connector right here and a connector right here. So you got to remove the cover that's right here to get to this connector. So this connector right here is your blue, which is going to be your blue one, which is the low pressure, and this connector right here is going to be your red hose, which is going to connect right here, which is your high pressure. The yellow hose will connect to the vacuum pump, and your vacuum is, make sure you have this cap off, because this is where your where it's going to be coming out. As for me, if you've been watching my previous videos, the whole AC system is completely empty and it's drained. So it's a good practice to even though I have nothing in there, to use the vacuum to suck out all that, because there could be moisture, there's air, and could be like unwanted particles, whatever it may be, that's still in the system, and that can in the long term just can make bad to my AC system. One thing I want to add real quick, if you still do have pressure in your system, in order to empty that out, you can empty it out before you connect any of this. You can empty it out through right here. So what's recommended is to take it to a shop where they actually do an actual evac with all the old AC, because this is not meant for that. This is just to create a vacuum. This is not to, if you're fully charged, this does not meant to do that. So don't get confused with this evacuating everything, because if you do, all that stuff is going to be coming out for right here, and you're just going to make a big old mess. So again, this is how you empty it, through the low pressure, but you don't do it into the atmosphere. You have to do it at a shop where they'll do it. Just saying. And to just be clarified, when you're opening this, there's a little sign right here. So to open it, you gotta go clockwise. Normally when you close something, you go clockwise, and to open it you go counterclockwise. But in this situation, you gotta go clockwise to open up these valves right here. And it'll say it right here too. So clockwise open, and to close clockwise. So now that these are open, and I can go ahead and start opening up these valves as well. As I've mentioned before, I did have this whole system is empty. So when I open up these valves, so in this situation, it'll be like your normal everyday how you open and close valves. So to open, you go counterclockwise, and to close, you go clockwise. So since I have nothing in the whole system, so I should be reading zeros on my low and high pressure gauge, which is expected. And also remember, since we're sucking out the vacuum here, this cap needs to come off. So this is where the air is going to be coming out. So with that being said, make sure you don't have your face over this, and have get some airflow, because this is where it's going to be coming out right here. So there's the pump is going, and so the one that's really important to watch is this low pressure gauge to create looking at the vacuum. So in the vacuum, so originally it was at 0, and when you want to see it, go to 30 inch of mercury. So once it gets to 30, I'll go ahead and turn off the pump, and then we're gonna wait a little bit and see if it holds that vacuum. So after a while, after the blue low pressure side reached to the 30 inch per mercury, go ahead and close these valves first. After you close these valves, you can go ahead and turn off the pump. I'm gonna wait a little bit. I'm gonna wait for about 30 minutes and see if this gauge goes back to 0 or if it stays at the 30 inch per mercury where it needs to be. Because if it goes back to 0, that means I have a leak somewhere in the AC line, the whole system. But if it stays at 30 during that 30-minute time frame, that means I'm good to go and there's no leaks and I'm ready to go on to the next step. Good news, it stayed at the 30 inch per mercury, which is a good thing. So now that 30-minute wait is over, so now what I'm gonna do is go ahead and turn on the pump again and let it run again for another 30 minutes. So again, I'm gonna go ahead and open up these. First I'm gonna go ahead and turn on the pump. Then go ahead and open up my low pressure side and high pressure side. And these should have been left open. So these should have not been shut while you're doing the, I should have mentioned that before. You make sure that these are left open at all times until it's time to close them. Alright, so it's been about 45 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the pump. So next, now that that is off, now it's a good time to go ahead and close these valves right here and leave these valves open. So the next part is, after doing that, this hose right here, this connection right here is going to be connected to this adapter, which this adapter will connect to this right here, to our refrigerant. The next part is really important. So this is what I want to explain about. This is where the scale comes into place. When it comes to the scale, make sure, you can have different units. Make sure that the scale is in grams. The reason why you need it to be in grams is because it's just easier to go off of grams, and also, as I mentioned before, that's what the sticker has, 500 grams, so it's easier to keep it all in the same unit instead of having to, say go in ounces and then convert it from ounces over to grams.
Okay, that's hard to keep track. How many is that per hour?
How's that gonna help you?
I will divide and then count to it.
Right.
Okay, well...
I am going to need 500 grams of refrigerant, so every bottle here has 340, so I know for sure I'm going to use all of this, but for when it comes to this second bottle, I'm not going to use all of it because that will put me way past the 500 grams that I need. Something to keep in mind, even though this does say 340 grams, it doesn't mean the whole thing weighs 130 grams. It means what's inside should be close to 130 grams. It's not including the can itself, because if I were to put on the scale, again, I'm not putting anything on it, that is 439 grams. That being said, it doesn't matter which one you use as your second can, but just to be on the safe side, it's good to go ahead and measure both cans. So 429, second can, 429. So as mentioned, it's good to go ahead and measure it. If you have to write it down somewhere on this, by all means, write down how much it weighs. So when you're done, because we're going to use this whole can for the first can, we're going to use all of the refrigerant that's inside, and just to make sure that we're all filled, we should get pretty much 89 grams left, so know that we're pretty much close to empty. So that means 340 grams of the refrigerant is into the system. So now here's the really important stuff. So you really got to keep track of the grams, because even though this right now weighs 429 grams, but you're gonna have this on it, so that's gonna add some weight. And then on top of that, you're gonna have probably the weight of the hose, so that's gonna add more weight. So you're gonna keep track of what the full weight is of what the can the connector, and the hose all added up to that, and then from there you're gonna see how much it's gonna give you to get to the 500 grams total of the refrigerant. So right here, I did a little bit of math, so it's just simple addition, subtraction. So we know 500 grams total, plus or minus 20, but I'm going to shoot for the 500. So just one can alone gets me 340 grams. So if I were to get the full 340 grams, that means I need 160 grams from the second bottle. So as mentioned, with the weight of the can itself and the refrigerant inside, with the weight of the adapter, and then I'm just going to simulate the weight of the hose with this without having to connect the hose, but I'm just going to show you guys just an example. So with everything connected, that is 813 grams. Total weight with the adapter, all that stuff, is 813 grams. So we know we need 160 grams left. So that means we need to see on the scale to drop down to 753. So this right here will need to drop down to 753 grams. So that once it gets to that number, that's how I'm gonna know that I have 500 grams of the refrigerant. And so all this numbers right here is in a perfect world situation where I actually get the exact 340 grams of refrigerant out of this. So like I said before, I'm going to go ahead and measure initial and then measure after. Even though I'm going to use the whole can, I'm going to measure it again after I'm done so I can see how much refrigerant actually I got out of this. So then I can adjust my numbers. So this might be slightly a little bit less or a little bit more of this 340 grams. So I went ahead and measured it again, and this time I wrote down with a Sharpie. So can 1 is 429 grams. In can 2, another 429 grams. So I have my initial weight. So by the time this is all empty, I'm going to go ahead and measure it again so I know exactly how much refrigerant is actually in the system with just this first can. When it comes to connecting the adapter to the can, first make sure that there's like a little like a pointy thing that's going to puncture this, which is going to open this up. So you want to make sure when you're putting this up that it is out of the way so it looks like this and not like this. So you can see how it's sticking out, so it's like in the open position. So because if you were to do that, that's going to go ahead and puncture it, and you're going to have the refrigerant coming out, which you don't want to do. So just make sure, keep a note how is this position before you connect your canister. So in order to go ahead and purge this, there is going to be a lot of mist coming out. So I'm going to go ahead and have like a towel over here while at the same time with the Phillips head pressing down on this little pin right here. Alright, I have the can connected. These valves are still closed. So again, since this is going to be the first bottle, there's really no need for me to check the scale. I'll just do an initial. Once I'm done with this can, I'll go ahead and weigh it and see how much refrigerant I actually got out of this can. And I'll go ahead and change these numbers up so I know how many grams from this can I will need. Now I'm inside the car. I have my little thermometer here just to see what the temperature is reading, but right now I'm like I'll say like about 58 degrees right now. So turn on the car. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and turn on the AC and have it at the lowest setting for both sides of the climate control. I have it at the lowest setting. So now I'm gonna go ahead outside and open up that can. Since I already have this can open, I'm good to leave that. These were always left open from the beginning, so I needed to do that. Real important, this stays closed. This does not get opened at all. So I'm gonna go ahead and open this very slowly to let it, whatever pressure's in here to go in here, and don't open it all at once, just open it nice and slow. There you go. See how that gauge moved up? So now go ahead and open up the whole thing. And just wait for this thing to run empty. Now that the can feels it's pretty empty, before removing this, make sure to leave this thing closed, that this stays closed. And this will always be closed, as I mentioned before. This will be closed, so don't touch it. This is now closed. Now you can go ahead and disconnect that bottle. In order to close this valve, you want to go counterclockwise till this is fully up, because remember that little pin is what pushes down on that, which will leave this open. So make sure this is all the way out and change the bottle. Now, the first bottle, I'm going to go ahead and weigh the first bottle and see how much refrigerant I actually used from this bottle. Right now, the bottle weighs 135 grams. Initial weight was 430 grams, and then my final weight for can 1 was 135 grams. So I ended up using a total of 295 grams. So right now, in the car, I have 295 grams of refrigerant. I need a total of 205 grams of refrigerant from that second bottle. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the scale on and see how much it weighs with all this connected. All right, so with the weight of the hose, the connector, the little valve, and the can itself, I come out with a total of 558 grams. So my initial weight in grams of can 2 with all the hoses and all the attachments is 558 minus the 205 grams that I already have in the system, gives me a total of 353 grams that I need to see on the scale. So once this drops down to 353 grams, that means I am good and I have about 500 grams of refrigerant in the whole coolant system. Now that I've punctured that can, now I can go ahead and open up this valve slowly. Look at that, 352 grams, and I needed 353 grams. Again, to stop that, you're gonna close this blue valve right here, the low pressure side, so that now it's closed. Now I'm on the inside of the car, so I still have the AC running, and now you can see the temperature gauge. So it's not coming into place, but right now I'm reading about, I think it's about 39 degrees Fahrenheit. So 39 degrees Fahrenheit, and before it was close to 60, and it's blowing nice and cool. So now that these are already closed, the red one will always be closed when you're recharging. I know I repeat myself quite a bit, so now I can go ahead and start closing these valves here. And just like the first bottle, I'm going to go ahead and open. So you're going to go ahead and leave this all the way in the up position so that needle pin isn't puncturing the can anymore. So now this can come off and you don't have to worry about refrigerant coming out. So there'll be just a little bit of purge, but that's what's left in this little gap right here. Now that I have the can removed, I'm going to go ahead now and disconnect this and disconnect this. And just as a reminder, both lids are different sizes. So the little one will go to the low pressure side, and then the bigger lid will go over to the high pressure side. Now that I have everything disconnected does not mean I'm out of the woods just yet. So in these lines there is still pressure. So by looking at the low pressure side and the high pressure side, there is still pressure in these lines. So in a way to depressurize these lines is I'm going to go ahead and open this up, and I'm going to purge it out of here. So now I am out of the woods now. So there is zero pressure on both gauges, on the low side and the high side. Alright, so after weighing everything, can 1, the initial weight for that was 430 grams, and the final weight was 135 grams. So that means I used 295 grams of refrigerant from can 1. Now can 2, the initial weight was 429 grams, and then the final weight was 213 grams, which came out, so subtract this with that, got me 216 grams. So now that I add the two final weights, that got me 511 grams. So again, the overall needs to be 500 plus or minus 20 grams, and I fall right in that plus or minus sign, so that is a good thing. Alright, so with all that said, I finally have some nice cool AC in the car, and I'm super excited about that. So again, I will say this, if you do not feel comfortable at all doing what I did or doing this method, that's fine. You don't need to do this. You know, if you feel comfortable or safer taking it to a shop, that's fine too. You know, if you don't, there's no point in trying to chance it or risk it if you don't feel that confident. So it's not a big deal, it's not a big problem. Do what's best for you. So for me, I decided to do it myself. So I think it was a good learning experience for me to do this myself. Again, this was my first recharge doing it this method. And because before I would always take it to the shop to do the AC recharge, but again, there is no shame in if you don't feel comfortable doing this on your own. So with that being said, thank you for watching this video. Hopefully you guys learned something new, and hope you guys have a great day. Thanks.